In 1995, one of the great movies of the decade was released, Seven. Seven stars Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt as two detectives investigating a string of gruesome murders. The movie ties the murders to the seven deadly sins as mentioned in the Bible. Often movies choose the path of tying the storyline to something biblical, and that's exactly what happened in the little-known film, The Alpines. The Alpines feature seven friends headed up to a cabin in the forest to catch up. The group are all friends from college and have somewhat gone in a different direction. As the weekend progresses, though, things get stranger, ultimately leading to its gory conclusion. The setup for this movie is nothing new, as we've seen countless horror films follow a group of friends to a cabin, only to meet a premature death. The Alpines begins by showing lead character Zach in therapy. Things have been going terrible for Zach as he's struggling as a young adult. He tried to commit suicide as he lost his job and his fiancée left him. He tells the therapist the best time in his life was college, as he had a great group of friends and the future seemed bright. Zach tells his therapist on the way out he's headed up this weekend to a cabin with his friends from college. Next, we see one of the other characters in the movie, Logan. Logan is a successful criminal defense lawyer. She's greeted by Rowan as she arrives at the cabin, and it's obvious that Logan doesn't like Rowan. Rowan is a fitness instructor and puts on the persona that everything in her life is perfect. We soon see, though, she, like the rest of the group, is not. Logan is then greeted by Andy, the free-spirited one in the group, and it's obvious Logan likes her. As Logan enters the house, she's met by Rowan's husband, James, who seems to be the responsible one in the group. Zach has arrived too at this point. Outside, the final two characters arrive, Gil and Roger. Roger has struggled with drug addiction for years, and Gil appears to be the muscle for the group and quintessential tough guy. The seven friends haven't seen each other in a few years, but they've got quite a history. Many of these college friends have hooked up and been in past relationships. The beginning of the movie shows this group of friends is really tight-knit, but there's some, let's say, unresolved differences that haven't been worked out. Gil and Logan were once engaged, but Gil broke it off for some reason. Logan also seems to have a thing for Roger, but apparently Gil snuck in and stole her. Roger hooks up with Andy every time the group gets together, and Zach is still in love with Andy. James and Rowan have their issues too, which we'll get to in just a little while. On the first night, as the group is sitting around, everyone's discussing what they're doing now and catching up. Gil and Logan soon get into a fight about their breakup, and Gil starts storming up the stairs. The group asks him what his big announcement is and why he invited them to the cabin. He's confused and says he didn't invite them and got a letter himself. Soon the group discovers they all got letters from different people. The party-like atmosphere turns more serious and a sense of fear enters the air. Still, they're not all the way convinced and think someone is playing a prank. Right now, the group needs to understand the seriousness of the situation. Someone has rented a cabin and got them up there for some reason, and we can imagine it's not good. It could be a prank, but the group knows each other pretty well, and we can suspect if someone is lying, they would fess up by now. They should plan on sticking together and going room to room, searching the house, and packing up everyone one by one. It's dark and raining outside, so they should head out in the morning, but for the night, they should all sleep in the living room and take turns staying awake. Instead of doing this, they split up and they decide to check around the property to make sure it's safe. Roger and Zach search the barn and discover a writing referencing the group's sins. We should be able to assume here, since there are seven people, there's going to be seven deadly sins. The seven deadly sins are pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, and sloth. It's not clear who is guilty of what yet, but it will as the movie progresses. The two grab the rest of the group and show them the message in the barn. After some debate about what to do next, they decide to head to their respective bedrooms. For some reason, Gil and Logan, who haven't seen each other in years and were just furious at each other, bunk up. Rowan and James go to bed, and here we are introduced to our first big secret. James really wants a baby, but Rowan has been secretly taking birth control pills. She pops a pill and then climbs back in bed with James. During the night, another storyline emerges around Roger. Roger looks in his bag and someone has stolen all his drugs, and he begins to go through withdrawal. We can speculate here that someone in the group wrote the letters, but who and why? The next morning the group is up, it's sunny out, and James and Gil decide to head into town to get the police. On the way there, the car gets a flat tire, and Gil and James get out of the car. Gil, for some reason, becomes enraged and super paranoid. This doesn't make any sense though. The prior night in bed with Logan, he was cool as a cucumber and calming her down. Is a flat tire really that tough of an obstacle? Gil starts yelling at James and accusing him of writing the letters. They start insulting each other with their painful secrets, and soon the two fight it out, with James winning. A bloodied Gil on the ground eventually brings up how James tried to get Andy to run away with him on his wedding night. He goes on to taunt James about how he slept with Andy on his wedding night as well. The aspiring family man James loses all control and stomps on Gil's hand, breaking it. We just learned James's secret, and it appears that James has some dirty secrets in his closet. The two walk back to the house, accomplishing absolutely nothing, and the group is stunned to see both bloodied and bruised. That night the friends are sitting around the fire when a game of truth and dare begins. We see the movie dive deeper into the dynamics of the group. The second night shows Zach and Andy talking in bed. Andy sees Zach tried to slash his wrist and is really upset and worried for him. Zach and Andy then start making out, and Zach spills the beans. He has always been in love with her. Andy doesn't believe him though, and asks why he didn't sleep with her the night before. Andy leaves the room, and Zach looks crushed. But should he be that upset though? Andy didn't stick him in the friend zone, and seemed receptive to the idea. It seems like Zach has at least a shot here. In the other room, James and Rowan are about to have a second night of intimacy. When Rowan goes in the bathroom, she's stunned to see photos of James and Andy making love. Rowan loses it and comes out yelling at James. James assures her that this happened before they started going out, but Rowan is having none of it. On the way out the door, Rowan tells him she's been having an affair with her yoga instructor for the last year. James begins to lose it. At this point, it's not clear why no one is knocking on the door, asking what the problem is. The night before, we heard Logan tell Rowan she heard her and James getting intimate, but now no one seems to hear them screaming at the top of their lungs in this small cabin. Rowan and James seem to be a pretty dysfunctional marriage. Rowan appears to love the idea of being married to James, but not him actually. She doesn't want a child, but I still think the affair conversation could have gone much worse. It could have been with one of her friends, or the beefcake at the gym. The fact that it's a female yoga instructor softens the blow somewhat here. In the next room over, we see Roger and Logan bonding in the bedroom. It's clear that Logan bonds much better with Roger than Gil, but her ego keeps her with Gil. Logan offers Gil some weed, to which he, of course, accepts. The two then start hooking up. Meanwhile, Gil gets a text from Logan's phone telling him to come in. Gil goes into Logan's room and is shocked to see the two making out. Gil and Roger get into it. Eventually the fight heads downstairs, and Roger and Gil get into a bloody fight. We learn Roger's addiction came from watching Gil steal Logan from her. Zach heads downstairs and tries to end the fight. Meanwhile, Andy is sleeping upstairs and wakes up. She's covered in blood and heads downstairs hysterical. Someone knows her secret and is toying with her. Andy once had an abortion and is not happy with the blood on her. Andy thinks it's Logan, but Logan is denying it. Andy yells at Logan for spilling the beans, but Logan says it wasn't her who said anything. Logan then realizes one other person knew too, Zach. As the attention turns toward Zach, he doesn't deny it. Zach turns from the lovable loser into the angry, depressed person he is. He stole Roger's drugs, put the photos in James's room, and has been playing a sick game with the group, torturing each of them with their secrets. He seems to have no empathy toward their pain. As they're fighting, they see a bloody James on the sofa. James is in a state of shock and eventually admits he killed his wife Rowan in a fit of rage. It's clear though at this point, Zach is too far gone and his depression is much worse than they thought. He goes on to tell the group his anger with them and that no one was supposed to die in this game. He angrily tells them the day he tried to kill himself, he called everyone from the group multiple times, but no one bothered to pick up. Zach shoots Gil in the shoulder and eventually shoots James, killing him. Zach then shoots himself in the head. 3 of the group are dead, and Logan decides it's time to clean up. This is one of the big flaws in the film though. Why would Logan think they could possibly clean up the scene and get away with it? There are 3 bodies, DNA and blood everywhere, and Zach probably put a credit card down on the house as well. Being a criminal attorney, she thinks they have no shot of proving their innocence if the police come. But let's look at the facts. James killed Rowan after a lover's quarrel. The evidence in the bedroom will show this. James was killed by Zach, and based on how he fell and the photos put by Zach, there's both motive and physical evidence. Zach's suicide will be easy to prove from the gunshot angle and the gunshot residue he still has on his hand. He also just tried to slit his wrist. In the final scene, we see Zach in therapy. The ending scene is somewhat open to interpretation in this film, as it could mean Zach imagined the whole event. However, I don't think that's the case, and the ending scene actually happened before the trip. Still, it's open to interpretation. As the film concludes, we now know the sins of the group and how each deadly sin ties to each member. Again, the 7 deadly sins are lust, envy, wrath, sloth, greed, gluttony, and pride. The sin of gluttony is probably the most obvious, as Roger is presented early in the film as an addict. The sin of pride goes to Logan as she dates Gil simply because he's the stereotypical a-hole guy and Logan likes the challenge. The sin of greed belongs to Gil because he dates Logan only because she liked Roger and Gil wants it all. The sin of envy belongs to Rowan as she aspires to be the picture-perfect wife. The sin of wrath belongs to James as we see his rage in multiple scenes in the film. The sin of lust belongs with Andy since she hooks up with everyone. The sin of sloth belongs with Zach as Zach appears to lack feeling and concern. While I definitely think many people watched the movie and made no connection to this biblical reference, I don't think it matters. The film was really good and did a lot with a low budget. It was well written, with good acting, and it kept the audience engaged till the final scene. I would definitely recommend this little known flick.